Welcome, my dear guests, to the captivating expanses of my story. Chapter 7, 2205. The icy wind howled through the snowy streets of Xanadu as Imperatrix Sevia Heimber climbed the icy steps to the imposing auditorium of the Imperial University. Her long robe, lined with silver Arctic fox, wafted majestically behind her, a brilliant sapphire blue that stood out sharply against the leaden winter sky. Myra, Gupta and Nadine Heimber flanked her like guardian angels, their footsteps crunching rhythmically over the frozen ground and echoing off the high stone walls. Sevia took a deep breath, the cutting draft burning in her lungs and creating little ice flowers in front of her mouth. 5 long years had passed since her last speech in this place. An eternity, she thought, suppressing a shudder. So much had changed, many sacrifices made, and many triumphs won. The magnificent auditorium was filled with a sea of black robes and expectant faces. As Sevia stepped onto the raised podium, all eyes turned to her, a mixture of awe and curiosity in their gazes. She let her gaze wander slowly over the crowd, taking in every face. Young men and women, brilliant minds and brave hearts, the future of the empire in flesh and blood before her. Graduates of the Imperial University, she began, her voice echoing. You are on the threshold of a new chapter in your lives. A chapter full of opportunities and challenges. She paused, searching for the right words. Our empire is growing and thriving. Not just here on Kasach but beyond the stars. Siddhas Sim, our first colony, is calling for you. A murmur went through the crowd. Sevia's gaze fell on a young man in the front row, his eyes excitedly shining. There are tasks out there waiting for you to master. A new world is waiting to be shaped. By your hands, your minds, your visions. Sevia took a step forward, her voice becoming more insistent. But do not forget there is still much to be done here on Kasach. Our cities, our industry, our culture, all of it needs fresh ideas and energetic hands. She could feel the energy in the room change, the graduates hanging on her every word. Whether you choose to explore new horizons on Siddhas Sim or preserve and develop our heritage here on Kasach, you are the future of our empire. Sevia paused, letting her words fall into a deep lake like heavy drops. She read a kaleidoscope of emotions in the faces before her, determination manifested in clenched fists, ambition shining from glowing eyes, and uncertainty flickering nervously at the corners of their mouths. She felt the weight of her own words, the weight of the responsibility she was placed on these young people, and for a moment, it threatened to crush her. It won't be easy, she continued, her voice softer now, almost motherly. You will come up against obstacles that threaten to bring you down. You will doubt when the nights seem long and the challenges seem overwhelming. But never forget, you are not alone in this darkness. The kingdom stands behind you like an unshakable rock, ready to catch and support you when you threaten to stumble. Sevia rose to full height, symbolizing the empire's strength and dignity. Her eyes twinkled like stars on a clear winter's night as she continued, go forth and shape our future with your own hands. Whether on the mist-shrouded moors of Siddhas Sim or in the icy tundras of Kasach, whether in the depths of space or the hidden corners of our cities, wherever your path takes you, carry the spirit of Kasach in your hearts. Show the universe what heights the children of our empire are capable of. A thunderous applause erupted, filling the auditorium like a mighty wave. The air vibrated with energy and enthusiasm. Sevia smiled, a rare expression of undisguised satisfaction on her otherwise so controlled face. She nodded to the graduates, seeing the potential for greatness in each of them. Behind her, she felt Myra's warm presence and Nadine's stoic strength like pillars supporting her. Emma, Andrea, and Paulina were with her in her thoughts, their determination and courage flowing through invisible bonds to Sevia. In this moment, surrounded by the realm's future and supported by the strength of her closest confidants, Sevia felt a confidence that seemed to outshine even the stars. The Ptolemy slipped out of hyperspace, and Andrea Sauer's breath caught. A scene unfolded before her that defied anything she had ever seen before. The neutron star Apsu sat enthroned in the system's center like a cosmic tyrant, its glistening light pulsating in an eerie rhythm. My goodness, Dr. Liam Novak whispered beside her. His eyes widened as he studied the sensor data. His hands trembled slightly as he wiped the display. The radiation levels are off the charts. It's beyond anything we've ever seen before. Fascinating and terrifying at the same time. Andrea nodded silently. Her fingers drummed nervously on the armrest of her captain's chair, a rhythmic throbbing that seemed to answer the pulsating light of the neutron star. She had known what to expect, but the reality surpassed her imagination. A shiver ran down her spine, a mixture of awe and underlying fear. "Shields to maximum," she ordered. Her voice sounded harsh as if the cosmic radiation had already dried out her throat. "Start mapping the system. Every detail could be crucial." The bridge buzzed with activity, a hive of scientific euphoria. Officers called out data, their voices overflowing with excitement. Displays flickered with new information, a kaleidoscope of numbers and diagrams. Andrea stared spellbound at the main screen, where the cruel ballet of the Apsu system was playing out. Her eyes burned from the effort of capturing every nuance of this cosmic choreography. The inner planets circled like moths around a deadly flame, caught in an eternal dance of destruction. Their surfaces were nothing but seething oceans of molten rock that seemed to pulsate to the beat of the neutron star. Cracks opened and closed in seconds, streams of lava undulating like living serpents across the tortured worlds. It was a sight of brutal beauty that simultaneously fascinated and shocked Andrea. "Captain," Ensign Tara Chen reported. "I'm locating 2 asteroid belts beyond the inner planets. The debris. They're moving chaotically." Andrea leaned forward. "Show me." An image of the asteroid belts, a chaotic inferno of rock and dust, unfolded on the main screen. Countless chunks of rock, from tiny particles to kilometer-sized chunks, collided in an eternal cosmic dance. They shattered into myriads of glowing splinters, only to reform the next moment. It was a cosmic battlefield of unimaginable proportions, a never-ending symphony of destruction and recreation that had been going on for eons. "Fascinating," Dr. Novak murmured. His eyes shone with scientific enthusiasm. "These asteroids must be remnants of the original planets. Shattered when Apsu became a neutron star. Each chunk could tell a story that goes back billions of years." Andrea felt an icy shiver run down her spine, in stark contrast to the heat of the neutron star. She thought of the unimaginable forces that had raged here, of the cosmic violence that had ground entire worlds to dust. Her thoughts involuntarily wandered to Kasach, her homeland. She thought of the fate her planet could one day suffer when her star underwent its final transformation. "Captain," Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka interrupted her gloomy thoughts. Her voice sounded tense, almost incredulous. "I have detected the outer planets. They are amazingly intact. It borders on miraculous." 2 worlds appeared on the screen, barren and jagged like ancient warriors. Deep scars covered their surfaces like a cosmic network of cracks and craters, silent witnesses to the catastrophe they had survived. Despite their devastation, they radiated a strange, almost defiant constancy. "Survivors," Andrea whispered in her voice, a mixture of awe and melancholy. "They survived the birth of the neutron star. Against all odds." She stared at the battered planets, symbols of cosmic resilience, and felt a strange affinity with these distant worlds. The crew of the Ptolemy remained in respectful silence. The Apsu system revealed its secrets to them, a symphony of light and shadow, life and death. Andrea Sauer took a deep breath. She could feel the responsibility weighing on her shoulders. This was more than just a research mission. It was a glimpse into a possible future, a warning, and a challenge simultaneously. "Start with the detailed scans," she ordered. Despite the chaos around her, her voice sounded firm. "We're going to map this system down to the smallest detail. Kasach needs to know what awaits us here." The Ptolemy continued on its course, a tiny light point amid cosmic forces. Andrea Sauer and her crew stared spellbound at the displays, caught between fear and fascination. The Apsu system had cast a spell over them, and they knew their journey had only begun. Myra Gupta sank into her chair, the weight of responsibility pressing heavily on her shoulders. Data pads and holographic projections piled up on the desk before her. She reached for the top report and skimmed the lines. A smile flitted across Myra's face, her eyes shining with satisfaction. The renaturation of the industrial wastelands on Kasach was finally complete, a triumph of nature over the legacy of a ruthless past. Where once gray concrete deserts and rusty ruins disfigured the land like boils, new life was now sprouting. In her imagination, Myra saw the first tender plants struggling bravely through the regenerated soil and the gentle swaying of new blades of grass in the wind. A warm feeling of pride flowed through her. "At last," she murmured, pushing the datapad aside with a satisfied gesture. Her fingers momentarily lingered on the cool metal as if she wanted to hold on to her success. With a deep breath, Myra turned to the following report. It concerned the civilian industrial facilities, and here, too, he brought good news. The factories and production facilities were not only completed but already in full operation. Myra closed her eyes for a moment and literally thought she could hear the rhythmic humming of the machines and feel the hustle and bustle of the workers, the pulse of a reawakened industrial heart. But a shadow fell over her satisfaction when she came to the last project, the autochthonous monument. Myra's brow furrowed when she saw the progress bar, a meager 60%. A frustrated sigh escaped her. The monument's symbolic significance weighed heavily. It was supposed to be a sign of identity and pride. The delays would undoubtedly incur the displeasure of some senators, perhaps even make political waves. "All right," she grumbled, her voice a mixture of resignation and defiant determination. "At least something's moving." She clenched her fist briefly as if she wanted to push the project forward. Suddenly, a new message flashed on her holoscreen. Myra hesitated briefly, then opened the file. It was a status report from Siddhas Sim. Her eyes widened as she read the numbers. The perimeter around the Knossos had grown to an impressive 5 kilometers. A veritable microcosm was beginning to unfold. But what amazed Myra was the number of awakened colonists. 100,000, she whispered in disbelief. That many already? She leaned back and tried to imagine the scene, 100,000 people awakening from their long sleep to colonize a new world. The challenges, the hopes, the fears, all mixed together in a powerful maelstrom of human emotion. Myra rubbed her temples. As the sector governor of the Kost sector, her responsibility for these people on Siddhas Sim now rested on her shoulders as well. She had to ensure that the infrastructure kept pace with the rapid growth, that resources were distributed fairly, and that conflicts were nipped in the bud. "How are the new arrivals doing?" Myra murmured, scrolling through the report with a furrowed brow. Her eyes flitted over the lines, greedily absorbing every detail. The first buildings outside Knossos were already taking shape, defying the adverse conditions of the alien planet. Temporary shelters sprang up like mushrooms from the boggy ground, supply centers pulsed with activity, and medical facilities stood ready to meet the inevitable challenges of establishing a colony. Everything was still under construction, a fragile network of hope and hard work, but the foundations of a functioning society were unmistakably in place. Myra felt a surge of pride mixed with overwhelming responsibility. With a determined movement, she leaned forward and activated her communication terminal. The excellent surface responded to her touch, whirring to life. She urgently needed to speak to Elena Volkov, the experienced captain of the Knossos. A flood of questions swirled in her head, and countless decisions were waiting to be made. "Establish connection to Captain Volkov," she ordered the system, her voice a mixture of authority and suppressed impatience. As the terminal established the connection, Myra's thoughts involuntarily drifted back to Kost. The projects back home were progressing, but would they be enough to keep pace with the explosive development on Siddhas Sim? The contrast between the established world and the up-and-coming colony grew more incredible with each passing day. She shook her head vigorously, banishing the thought to the back of her mind. A question for another day, she reminded herself. Now, it was time to concentrate on the immediate challenges. The communication terminal beeped piercingly, snapping Myra out of her musings. With a soft flicker, Captain Volkov's hologram materialized before her, an imposing figure whose presence could be felt even through the artificial projection. Myra Gupta leaned back in her leather armchair while the hologram of Elena Volkov flickered and hissed in front of her. The quantum-entangled link transcended the light years between them as if they were sitting in the same room, but small distortions reminded them of the unimaginable distance. "What's it look like, Elena? Give me the unvarnished truth," Myra demanded, her voice a mixture of concern and curiosity. Her fingers drummed nervously on the armrest. Volkov's face darkened, and deep wrinkles dug into her forehead. "We're making progress, but the price is damn high. Last week we lost 3 good people. Cocky idiots who thought they could size up the local predators. Bloody arrogance." Myra winced as if she'd been punched. "Damn it. What exactly happened?" Her voice trembled slightly. "A pack of these swamp wolves, as we call them. 6-legged, with scales instead of fur. Eyes like glowing coals. The group thought they could scare them off, like earthly wolves. They thought wrong. These beasts are faster and more cunning than anything we know." Myra rubbed her temples, fatigue and worry etched her face. Every loss hurt, every life was precious to the fragile colony. Have we taken countermeasures? We can't afford such mistakes. Elena nodded grimly. Tightened security protocols. No one leaves the safe zone without heavy weaponry and an escort. But you know people, always a few hotheads around. I see, Myra sighed. How are things otherwise? Volkov's face brightened a little, and the wrinkles on her forehead smoothed out slightly. The development is progressing, despite everything. We found a promising location for the first real city. Close to the equator, right on the coast. A strip of solid land between the jungle and the sea. Sounds good. Myra leaned forward with interest. Why exactly there? What makes the location so special? Mild climate, plenty of fresh water from the tides. We could use the ocean currents to generate energy. And the ground is more stable than inland. Less danger of sinking into the mire. The coast also offers natural protection from inland predators. Myra nodded approvingly, a spark of hope glowing in her eyes. Wise choice. How far along are the preparations? We've already drained and paved the ground. It was a hell of a job pushing back the swamp. The first foundations will be poured in the next few days. The special mixture that defies the damp climate. It's going to be a challenge, but... Elena smiled grimly, pride flashing in her eyes. We Kazakhs love a challenge, don't we? This will be our triumph over this world. Myra returned the smile, feeling the spark of Elena's determination. You certainly are. You're doing great. What about resources? Do you need supplies? Additional manpower? Elena shook her head, her posture radiating confidence. We can manage for now. The Gnosis is well equipped, a floating paradise of technology. And we are learning every day to make better use of local resources. This world is rich if you know where to look. But in a few months. I see. I'll make sure you get what you need. Myra made a mental note, her fingers twitching as if she were writing invisible words in the air. What is the mood among the colonists? Are there any signs of homesickness or despair? Tense, but optimistic. Elena frowned, searching for the right words. Most of them knew what they were getting into. This swamp world is no walk in the park. The losses have shaken us, but also welded us together. There's a kind of pioneering spirit. Every day is a struggle, but also a victory. Myra nodded thoughtfully, her eyes shining with recognition. Good to hear. This spirit is more precious than any resource. Keep it alive, nurture it. It will get you through the hard times when all else fails. We will, Governor. Elena saluted curtly, determination hardening her features. We are Kosch. Giving up is not in our nature. She hesitated briefly, her gaze flickering. Anything else you should know? The ruins we discovered. The holographic projection flickered before Myra Gupta's eyes as the news of the ex-Susquehanna arrived. Captain Lena Schultz's exhausted but triumphant face appeared. Governor, the outpost in the Igorot system is complete. We are ready for action. Myra nodded appreciatively. Excellent work, Captain. The Kosch sector is growing. Thank you, ma'am. What are your orders? Myra hesitated briefly, her gaze wandering to the system's resource maps. Start developing the discovered resource points. Priority is given to strategic minerals and energy sources. Understood, Governor. We'll get to work immediately. As the connection ended, Myra leaned back. The Kosch sector was expanding faster than expected, and a wave of satisfaction flowed through her, mixed with a hint of worry about the challenges this rapid expansion would bring. Myra Gupta hurried through the marble corridors of the Senate building, a data crystal firmly in her hand. The information on it was literally on fire, so important was it for the upcoming session. Her heart beat faster as she thought of the questions that were about to come her way. The heavy doors of the Senate chamber opened before her. A sea of faces turned towards her as she entered. Senators in magnificent robes, military representatives in shimmering uniforms, and, of course, the emissaries of the Helix in their simple but impressive robes. Myra strode to the lectern, her footsteps echoing through the suddenly silent room. She took a deep breath before she began to speak. Honored members of the Senate, I bring news of our expansion efforts. A low murmur went through the ranks. Myra saw Nadine Heimber, the Helix representative, straighten up in her seat, her eyes literally boring into Myra. The outpost in the Igorot system is complete. We have started to develop the resources. This adds another system to the cost sector. The murmuring grew louder. Senator Voss jumped to his feet. What can you tell us about the Igorot system, Sector Governor? Myra nodded. Indeed, Senator. Our empire is growing faster than ever before. Nadine Heimber rose slowly, her voice cutting through the commotion like a knife. And at what cost, Governor Gupta? What about the risks of this uncontrolled expansion? What about our values, our genetic purity? The tension in the hall was palpable. Myra could feel everyone's eyes on her, and she knew her next words would be decisive. Sister Nadine, I understand your concerns. We take the risks very seriously. But we can't stand still while the universe continues to grow around us. Nadine's eyes narrowed. And what about the reports of alien ruins in the Siddhas system? What dangers do they pose to our society? Myra hesitated. She had hoped to avoid this topic for the time being. But now it was in the world. She saw the expectant, sometimes worried looks on the senators' faces. It's true, we have discovered artifacts from an unknown civilization. Our scientists are examining them with extreme caution. We will not jump to conclusions or take any rash actions. A murmur went through the hall. Myra knew she was balancing a fine line between progress and tradition, between curiosity and caution. The Senate debate was still raging when a shrill beeping drew everyone's attention. The noise stopped as if someone had flipped a switch. Imperatrix Sevia Heimber raised her hand, her gesture a mixture of command and appeasement. Her communicator glowed an urgent, pulsing red, reflected ominously in her eyes. A message of the highest priority, she announced, her voice echoing through the suddenly silent hall like a thunderclap. From the Ek Asimov. A murmur swelled, running through the rows like a wave. Myra Gupta felt her pulse quicken, her heart hammering against her ribs. What had Emma Hart discovered? What secrets had the universe revealed? Sevia nodded to the technician, her movement precise and controlled. Establish the connection. The hologram flickered, particles of light dancing and condensed. Emma Hart's figure materialized in the center of the hall, a ghostly apparition of light and shadow. Her eyes shone feverishly with excitement, and her usually neatly coiffed hair was disheveled, an unusual, almost unsettling sight for the pedantic scientist. Imperatrix, honorable senators, Emma began, her voice vibrating with suppressed excitement, every word seemingly charged with meaning. We have fully explored the Q-turn system. The data is extraordinary. We're on the verge of a discovery that could change everything. Senator Voss leaned forward, his eyes sparkling with curiosity and a hint of suspicion. Extraordinary in what way, Commander Hart? Spare us the scientific gibberish and get to the point. Emma took a deep breath, her chest visibly rising and falling. For a moment, she seemed to struggle with the words, as if searching for a way to put the incomprehensible into words. We have discovered another hyperlane. It leads. Well, our calculations indicate a trinary star system. 3 suns orbiting each other in a cosmic ballet. The hall exploded in excited murmurs. Voices were raised, and senators jumped up from their seats. 3 stars in one system, a rarity that even experienced space travelers have rarely seen, was a cosmic wonder that went beyond the boundaries of the known. Nadine Heimber rose slowly, her movements deliberate and controlled. Her voice cut through the commotion like a knife through butter, cold and precise. And what dangers does this system hold for us, Commander? Have you considered the impact such a discovery could have on our society? On our values, our traditions? Emma's eyes narrowed to slits, a hint of annoyance flitting across her face. With respect, Sister Nadine, the scientific possibilities far outweigh the potential risks. A trinary system could give us insights into the formation of planets that we've never had before. It could revolutionize our understanding of the universe, revealing secrets we never even dared to dream of. Myra watched as Sevia nodded thoughtfully. The Imperatrix weighed every word, her face a mask of concentration. Commander Hart, Sevia's voice was calm but firm. What do you suggest as the next step? Emma's hologram flickered briefly as she turned to an invisible console. We are ready to traverse the hyperlane, Imperatrix. With your permission, we would explore and map the trinary system. The tension in the hall was palpable. All eyes were on Sevia, waiting for her decision. Myra held her breath. She knew how much depended on this moment, for science, Kasach, and her future as an interstellar power. Sevia rose slowly, her presence filling the room. Commander Hart, your discoveries are invaluable to our empire. You have permission to explore the trinary system. But be careful. The safety of your crew is your top priority. Emma saluted, relief and excitement reflected on her face. Understood, Imperatrix. We will make you proud. As the hologram went out, the Senate erupted into heated discussion. Myra sat back, her head buzzing with the possibilities opening up to them. A trinary system, who knew what wonders awaited them there? The Imperatrix Sevia Heimber rose to her feet, her imposing figure looming over the Senate like a living colossus. Her presence filled the hall with a respectful silence that seemed to stifle even the hum of the life support systems. Her eyes glowed with the intensity of distant stars as she raised her voice, each word heavy with meaning and power. Senators, she began, her voice echoing off the high ceilings, we are not just on the cusp of a new era. We stand on the edge of a cosmic abyss into which we must dare to leap. The discoveries of Asimov have opened up possibilities that our ancestors never dared to fantasize about in their wildest dreams. A murmur, like distant thunder, went through the ranks. Myra Gupta felt her heartbeat accelerate, the blood rushing in her ears. She curled her fingers into the armrests of her seat as if she could absorb the force of Sevia's words. Deep down, she knew that the Imperatrix's following words would determine the fate of the realm for generations, perhaps millennia. It is time, Sevia continued, her voice softer now but no less insistent, that we unleash the full potential of our glorious tradition of discovery. But not in blind haste, which could plunge us into the abyss, but with caution and a wisdom that does justice to our responsibility as pioneers of the cosmos. Sevia's gaze swept over the assembled senators, piercing each one with the sharpness of a laser. Everyone in the room felt directly addressed as if they bore the burden of this monumental decision. I propose, she said, each word as if chiseled in stone, we implement the philosophy of slow learning. Let's prioritize the importance of patience and strategic thinking. Because only then can we ensure that every step we take into the vastness of the universe leads us not only forward but also upward. Nadine Heimber, the Helix representative, nodded in agreement. Her otherwise skeptical expression brightened. But to protect and exploit our discoveries, we also need military strength, Sevia continued. That's why I'm ordering the formation of veteran armies at Imperial level. These experienced warriors will secure our borders and provide the necessary protection for our research missions. Admiral Paulina Romero stood bolt upright, her eyes sparkling with pride and determination. With this new direction, Sevia continued, her voice laced with an aura of unshakable authority, we will not only discover new worlds, but we will use them wisely and defend them with the strength of our convictions. The Empire of Kasach will stride into a future of wonder and unimagined strength, the limits of possibility ever before us. The Imperatrix's words echoed as she sat down again, her every movement imbued with majestic grace. The hall exploded in a crescendo of excited discussion and enthusiastic applause, a storm of emotion and thought. Myra watched keenly as small groups formed, a microcosm of Kasach's political landscape. Senators were heatedly debating the implications of Sevia's announcement, their gestures wild, their voices muffled but intense. She saw the barely restrained anticipation in the feverishly gleaming eyes of the scientists, the steely determination in the angular faces of the military, and the thoughtful, almost worried expressions of the religious representatives. She felt a complex mixture of tingling excitement and gnawing worry tightening into a knot in her stomach. The possibilities seemed limitless, an ocean of undiscovered worlds and wonders. But with them came new, grave responsibilities and lurking dangers that waited like predators in the dark. As sector governor, she would play a vital role in this new, uncertain era, an architect of the future. Sevia caught Myra's gaze and gave her a barely perceptible nod, an almost imperceptible movement that spoke volumes. A silent message of encouragement and unwavering trust that penetrated Myra to the core. Myra tightened her shoulders, tensing every muscle in her body. She would be up to this monumental task for Kasach, for the colonies, and for the dizzying future. They would mold together from the raw material of the stars. Emma Hart stood on the bridge of the Asimov, her hands clasped tightly around the railing. Her gaze was fixed, mesmerized on the main screen, which revealed the mesmerizing spectacle of the Whale system. 3 stars, each with its color palette, performed an intricate cosmic dance that reminded Emma of the ballets she had seen as a child. "Scan the system," Emma ordered. Her voice vibrated with suppressed excitement, and she had to control herself so that she did not sound like an excited child. Lieutenant Zhang leaned over his console, his fingers flying over the controls. After a moment of silence, he looked up. Whale-EDA is a yellow dwarf with 4 planets orbiting it in different orbits. Whale-EDB, a red dwarf, is accompanied by 2 planets. And Whale-EDC, an orange dwarf, has a single planet in orbit. Emma nodded approvingly. She fixed her gaze on the orange star on the screen. "Concentrate on Whale-EDC. This component is closest to us. What can you tell me about its planet?" Zhang worked intently, his eyes darting over the data streams on his screen. Whale-EDCI is a cold oil world, probably with a frozen surface. He paused, his brow furrowing. "Wait a minute. I'm detecting an unusual structure in orbit. It looks like..." On the screen, Emma ordered. The image switched to a close-up of the planet. Emma leaned forward, her eyes narrowed. "Is that a ring system?" Dr. Novak stepped up beside her, his eyes sparkling with scientific curiosity. "Not quite. The structure is too irregular for natural rings. It looks more like..." He hesitated as if searching for the right words. "A debris field," Emma finished his sentence. She turned to her crew, her voice vibrating with excitement. "Theories?" A lively discussion broke out on the bridge. The air crackled with excitement. Zhang leaned over his console and speculated, perhaps a collision between planets or moons? The gravitational forces in this system are complex. Dr. Singh shook her head. Her voice was calm but firm. "Unlikely. The distribution points more to the impact of a massive asteroid. Look at the scattering." Lieutenant Chen spoke up, his eyes shining with excitement. "Or it could be something artificial. The remains of an old space station, perhaps?" Emma listened intently as her mind raced. Each theory opened up new, fascinating possibilities. She felt the familiar tingle of discovery in her stomach. But without more data, it remained just speculation, as tempting as it was. "We need more information," she finally decided. Her voice had taken on a determined tone. "Prepare a detailed scan sequence. I want to know everything: composition, age, distribution patterns. Leave no particle unanalyzed." She turned to the navigation officer. "And launch a probe for close-ups. We need to solve this mystery." The crew set to work eagerly. Emma could feel the electrifying tension on the bridge. This was why she had become an explorer, to discover the unknown and solve mysteries. She stepped up to the communication terminal. "Heart to Kasach. We have reached the Whale-ED system and discovered an anomaly in the orbit of Whale-EDCI. It is an extensive debris field of unknown origin. We are beginning detailed scans and will transmit further information shortly." As Emma closed the channel, her eyes wandered to the main screen. The debris field shimmered in the light of the orange star, a silent witness to past events. What could have happened here? What secrets did these shattered remains hold? The answers were still a long way off, but Emma and her crew had taken the first step. They had made a new discovery, another puzzle in the great mystery of the universe. And they would not rest until they had solved it. The lights of the KNN studio shone on Almar Kazan as he got ready for his annual review show. His face, marked by the years but still full of energy, looked straight into the camera. "My fellow citizens of Kasach," he began in his characteristic deep voice, "the year 2205 is drawing to a close. A year full of groundbreaking discoveries, courageous expeditions, and profound changes for our empire." Myra Gupta sat next to him, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Almar turned to her. "Sector Governor Gupta, let us review together the events that have shaped our empire this year." Myra nodded in agreement. Asimov's discovery of the debris field in the Whale-ED system has our scientists in an uproar. It could be the key to understanding an ancient civilization. "And how has this discovery affected the population?" Almar asked. His eyes sparkled with curiosity, and his voice vibrated with excitement. "It's created a wave of enthusiasm for space exploration," Myra replied. Her hands gestured animatedly as she continued, "Applications for the Space Academy have increased by 300%. In schools, Kids discuss debris fields and ancient civilizations instead of sports scores. Almar nodded approvingly, his face a mixture of pride and concern. But not everything went smoothly. The incident in the Igorot system has shaken us all. His voice became softer, almost reverent. Myra's face darkened, shadows dancing across her features. Yes, the loss of the Ek Magellan was a heavy blow. We mourn the loss of the brave crew. Their names will forever be immortalized in the annals of our history. How has the Empire reacted to this tragedy? Asked Almar. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table to catch every word. We have tightened the security protocols for all research vessels, Myra explained. Her voice sounded firm, determined. And the families of the fallen are receiving extensive support. We've set up a fund to support their children until they graduate from university. Almar changed the subject, his voice taking on a more optimistic tone. Let's talk about the colonization of Siddhas Sim. It was a huge step for our empire. The images of the first settlers treading the boggy ground have electrified the nation. Myra's eyes lit up. The first 500,000 colonists have already settled in. The infrastructure is growing every day. It's impressive to see a new world emerging under our hands. But there was also resistance to the expansion, Almar interjected. Myra sighed. Yes, the Helix movement sees colonization as a threat to our genetic purity. We're working hard to alleviate their concerns while advancing our progress. A balancing act, commented Almar, his voice a mixture of admiration and concern. What about the economic developments? Have the investments in space travel borne fruit? The development of new resources in the explored systems has boosted our economy, Myra explained. Her eyes shone with pride. Per capita income has increased by 15%, a record in our history. Unemployment has fallen to a record low of 2%. She paused, her face becoming more serious. But we must remain vigilant to ensure a fair distribution. Not all sectors are benefiting equally from this boom. Almar nodded thoughtfully, his brow furrowed. An impressive development, but also a great responsibility. He leaned forward, his voice softening. Finally, Governor Gupta, what was the most significant moment of the year for you? An event that particularly touched you? Myra smiled, her eyes shimmering with emotion. The opening of the first university on Siddhas Sim. When I saw the young students, their eyes full of hope and thirst for knowledge, I realized it symbolized that we are not only expanding but also taking our values and our quest for knowledge to the stars. We are not just building a colony, we are building a future. Thank you, Governor Gupta, said Almar, visibly moved by Myra's words. He turned back to the camera, his voice gaining strength and conviction. Dear fellow citizens, the year 2205 was full of ups and downs. It has challenged us but also broadened our horizons. We have suffered losses, but we have also made great progress. May the coming year. Hey, I would be happy if you could give my video a like, leave a comment and subscribe to my channel to stay up to date.